As we continue our globe-trotting expedition in these Brazilian stock cars, we find ourselves here at the North American Temple of Speed, Road America. Welcome, everyone, to Friday Night Primetime for the Stock Car Brazil Series. My name is DJ Clark, joined, as always, by Zach Sweeney, and Arjuna Kankapati is our director and producer behind the scenes. As I said, welcome here to Road America. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic round number 6 in this series. And Zach, I cannot wait to see these Brazilian stock cars let loose on this historic circuit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've had a fantastic season of racing so far, and well, Road America, it's just, it is always going to be a recipe for some fun. We've got that long pitch straight, and as always, DJ, that push to pass is going to be mighty.
Yeah, indeed it is, and I think we're definitely going to see a little bit of strategic use of that push to pass around here, specifically coming down that long pit straight, maybe down through the Marine sweep, maybe a little bit going down the backstretch, through the kink and into Kettle Bottoms, that kind of area. It could be a bit of a strategic race as we focus there on turn 5. That is going to be one of the key overtaking opportunities on the circuit, though. A good spat of drivers out here today. 5 minutes left in our qualifying session. You get 2 laps to try to set your best time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so crucial to maximize those 2 laps. You've got to use the first one really as just sort of a test the waters a little bit, get yourself acclimatized to the circuit, get yourself warmed up, and then it's just absolutely everything on that final lap. Just give it your absolute all. Try and set the best lap possible, because yes, you can overtake, but we've seen before how track position really can be beneficial, because if you can get a good start out in front and just leave everyone else to battle behind, you're in a very, very good position.
Yeah, indeed you are. You definitely want to be in front, but this is going to be a little bit different, I think, than some of the rounds that we've seen previously. The draft going to be a huge talking point. I think this is going to be a little bit more akin to the racing we saw at Interlagos than some of the other tracks that we've been to on this schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll have to just wait and see. You know, we're always there's always a surprise when it comes to the Friday Night Primetime, especially this season. Of course, we had some absolute chaos and drama last time out at Bathurst. We had Alex Velo just have a massive spin through the cutting and just caused absolute carnage behind. So, you know, it's not exactly formulaic by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like, okay, this is going to happen this time and this time and this time. No, yeah, anything can happen, because just like these cars, this series is incredibly unpredictable.
Yeah, indeed, it is a very unpredictable series. Unpredictable cars as they go around the circuit, trying to work their way here. This is Felix Samoas as he comes down through that Canada corner, an always difficult place. You've got to be just right on getting that power down and then working his way up through Bill Mitchell Bend. And I don't know about you, Zach, but this final corner, I think I've maybe gotten it right once or twice in my career of sim racing.
I've never driven this circuit, so I can say I've got a 100% success rate through that final corner, purely because I haven't ever driven it. But yeah, it seems to be a very tricky corner. Of course, we saw through there how thin the margins can be, and how much you just have to absolutely get it right. It's not like some of the very modern circuits that we see, where, you know, you've got a ton of runoff to use. No, if you overstep the mark, you find yourself in a bit of a pickle.
Indeed you do, as we've got those first times coming down on the board right now. Pedro Henrique is your pole sitter by about 35 thousandths of a second, with Renato Carlos behind him and Felipe Pascual in 3rd place. We watch here as Flakier comes across the line, waiting to see what that time is going to be. Murilo Lionel able to bump his way up into 5th, Penner into 8th right now. Not seeing a time set down for Flakier, so he may have fallen afoul of some of those off tracks,
which is going to put a lot of pressure on this final run here. He's just, I don't know what he's going to do. Is he going to give it absolutely everything, try and set his good pace, or is he going to rein it in a little bit, just try and put a lap in? Because even if it's a couple of tenths off, it's better than starting dead last. And just talking about Ronaldo Carlos at the moment, he is on an absolute sensational run of form. He managed to win 2 weeks ago in Hockenheim, P3 last time out at Bathurst, and now provisionally P2 in qualifying. He certainly is one to look out for in this race.
Yes, indeed, he is. Carlos, definitely one of those drivers to keep an eye on. We keep our eye here on Simulis as he comes through the carousel. This is going to be a very, very tricky corner, I think, in these machines. Obviously, not a whole lot of downforce. There's going to be a lot of feathering of the throttle there coming through that corner. Really trying to get that corner absolutely perfect.
Absolutely, and of course it's a very crucial run in the fact that you need to get it right. You've got a long run to, you know, full throttle, and if you lose that momentum, if you get a bit of a tank stop or whatever, you're going to be left very, very vulnerable off the exit of there on the run through cattle bottoms. And again, if someone just behind you uses a bit of push to pass, that's just going to add to your problems. And yeah, again, it's very fine margins. It's all about just getting the exits right, just making sure you're not a sitting duck down the straight, because that's the majority of the time where we see overtakes done. It's someone sat behind, waiting, saving that push to pass, and then seeing the mistake, and then boom, using it, and away they go.
Indeed, and your pole sitter right now, by the way, Pedro Enrique, has pulled into pit lane, so he is done for the day, still holding on to that 35 hundredths of a second advantage. We're going to wait here to see if Simoes is going to be able to improve. He is, but I don't think that lap is going to count for him. Looks like Pascual will be able to improve, but not enough to get him close to Ronaldo Carlos. There is the number 7 machine. This is Flacker out on track right now, trying to bring that car around to set a clean time. Remember, his last lap was deleted. Only about 25 seconds left to go here in qualifying, so that should pretty much round out the field here, I would have to imagine. Waiting for Marco to cross over the line. Is that going to be a clean lap? It is, and it's going to be pole.
Fantastic lap. We said he got a lot of pressure on his shoulders, and he certainly delivered in the dying moments. And just look at how close that top 3 is. We are in for an absolute treat today, DJ.
We are in for a real treat here, only beating that pole out by about 1/10 of a second. And that's going to bring us to your starting grid. Plenty of time to go through it here, as we will have a full pace lap around this very long Road America circuit. It's going to be Marco Flacker there in P1, Pedro Enrique in P2, Ronaldo Carlos in 3rd, and Felipe Pascal in P4. Nick Thyssen there will be in P5, followed by Murillo Linol in P6. 7th will be Ender Pineda, followed by Felix Simoes, with Brian Penner, Adriano Medeiros, and Victor Batista rounding out your starting order.
We are certainly in for a treat today. And of course, yeah, very, very close. And of course, you know, that the slipstream and the tow can really keep a lot of people in the mix. Of course, our top 3 was separated by something like 1/10.5, give or take a few thousandths of a second, which, you know, to an outside observer, to a normal person, is absolutely nothing. But in racing, and as these guys have proved, it is absolutely everything. And I think anyone inside our top 3 today could be in a shout for taking the victory.
I certainly think they could, as well, as we've got plenty of drivers here looking to see what they can do. As we said, it will be a full pace lap around this circuit, and so that means you got plenty of time to warm up those tires. Track temperatures right now a little bit on the toasty side at about 101 degrees Fahrenheit out on track.
That's really going to play in a factor in terms of the tires. They're going to really have to try and get them warmed up, but again, they're not going to have to do anything drastic in that sense. So it should be pretty equal in terms of tire temperature off the start. But it is so crucial to get them done. You do not want to be a sitting duck with cold tires, because you go into turn 1 with colder tires than the guy in front of you, or even the guys behind you. And one, you could either, you know, go in a bit too deep or mess up, or be full vulnerable to the cars behind as they got the more grip and they can get the run off turn 1. So yeah, you've got to make sure you're not going to be one of those people that haven't warmed up your tires, because you could, you know, races can't be won on lap 1, but they can certainly be lost.
Yes, they certainly can, and this fast sweeper of turn 1, particularly difficult there on those colder tires, as that is a very, very quick corner. Even in these low downforce Brazilian stock cars, it's much more of a brush braking corner. You're not really going into a full heavy brake, and that's also going to set up for later in the races. It's going to get a little bit more difficult to try to get a pass done there. You're going to have a little bit better luck, I think, if you're going to try to make a pass in these first couple of corners to try to make the move into turn 3.
Yeah, again, it's just you just gotta, you know, stay as close as you can to that car behind. Just make sure to maximize every possible opportunity. Of course, we've seen the melee of turn 1 and lap 1 in general in this series, especially amongst the mid pack. So, you know, just keep your nose clean. As I say, a long race, 30 minutes. You know, it can be seen as sort of a long race. Even in these sprint formats, you have to think long game. You don't want to be getting caught out in turn 1. So just keeping a clean nose, but also if you can see a gap, it might be worth going for it, because then it sets you up in a really good position and you're not getting bogged up for a few laps, as we have seen drivers get bogged up behind cars and then not be able to chase after the leaders.
Yeah, indeed, and that's going to be a real talking point to try to see. You really can get bogged up, specifically in this second sector of the lap, as drivers work their way through it right here. Really the run from turn 5 all the way up into the carousel. very, very tricky. It's very hard to get past at any waypoint through there. There's a reason they call it the hurry downs. You've got to be trying to maximize speed through there while simultaneously not trying to lose any time through there or run off track, as there's a lot of grass and gravel that you can find yourself getting off into.
Absolutely, it's very single file-esque. If you look for a move down the inside, all you're going to be doing is costing yourself, both you and the car that you're trying to overtake, time, and it just isn't beneficial for either of you. It's so much better to just sit behind, play it single file, and try and limit the run. Because again, if you're in a 3-car train, you got the inside of someone, the guy behind you is like, okay, you're both buggered now, I'm going to come up the inside of both of you. So it's just about playing the race car, playing the racecraft, and being patient and picking the right opportunities, because yes, there's a gap, but is it worth going for?
Yeah, indeed it is. As we work our way here out of the carousel, this is going to be another very, very tricky part of the track, going down into the kink. Zach, absolutely flat out in most cars. Little bit of a lift, I've got to think, in these Brazilian stock cars, though.
Yeah, of course, we've seen how twitchy, unpredictable, and just sketchy that these stock cars can be. So just as an air of caution, just to take a little bit of a lift. But again, you don't want to be lifting off the throttle and make the weight go wayward, because that again is crucial. But yeah, these stock cars are just all over the place, really. You've really got to drive them like they're on a knife edge, and yeah, you just got to be careful. Yes, you can throw it into a corner maybe, but it's not particularly the fastest way to go about things. And of course, it is an incredibly tricky circuit. We've come off the back of Bathurst. We're going into Road America. It's not exactly the kindest calendar for these drivers in these cars.
No, indeed, it is not. And even next week, we head to Knock Hill, which is going to be even tougher, but that is a little ways away right now as we get ready to take the green here. Flacker on the pole, Pedro Enrique lining up to his outside, Ronaldo Carlos and Nick Thyssen there behind them. And there goes that pace car scampering off into pit lane as we watch here coming up over the world-famous hill at Road America. Green flag in the air. We are racing at Road America. It is a great start there from Flacker. Pedro Enrique trying to come up behind there, a little bit side-by-side between himself and Ronaldo Carlos. A couple of big dives down to the inside. Contact there with Thyssen and Philippe Pascal, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely a horrible start for the number 4, really falling backwards. Everyone just trying to follow their way through, but a perfect start from Flack there, just able to clear off, not get involved with any skirmishes, and again, Carlos just getting himself into the mix early, and unfortunately for Enrique, just getting into the chaos a little bit too early, and they don't want to be fighting too far behind because of how close qualifying was. They do not want to be losing sight of Flack in front.
No, they really don't. And near as they plunge their way down the hill into turn 5 for the first time, drivers just separating themselves out. This and under a little bit of attack there from Lionel behind him as drivers now go up under the Corvette bridge. This is such a tricky braking zone. You've got to be really careful with the throttle application. Side by side with Lionel and Thyssen, they're going to keep paddling down as they work their way into the hurry downs.
Trying to get himself into the mix as Lionel. He's putting some pressure on, but he's got to be careful of Penetra, or Pascal behind him, I should say. He's really he's waiting in the mix, waiting for that move. This is the section we were talking about in qualifying. Just, you've got to be careful going for moves through this section of the circuit because of how lethal that third driver can be. But Thyssen holding his own, holding his nerve, and keeping Lionel behind for now. Flacker, though, with a dominant start, 7/10 clear on this first lap. He's just getting his head down, setting into a rhythm, and trying to find that consistent flow.
Indeed, and you can see there on that timing pylon provided by ATVO, and massive shout out to Nick Thyssen, actually, who is one of the designers there with ATVO. So always glad to see him racing and working his way around. That 6 that you see next to all of the drivers' names, that is an indicator how many pushes to pass they still have remaining. So that is certainly going to be something that we are going to watch for in the remaining 28 minutes of this race. A little bit of side-by-side action there in the back as they go through Bill Mitchell Bend. That looked like Medeiros and Panetta not going to be able to do it. The number 2 there behind him, Simo, is trying to see what he can do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you were alluding to there with a push to pass, it's going to be one of those vital talking points. Pascal, I think, has had something wrong. He's tumbling down the order, so maybe had a spin through the final sequence of corners there. Samoa's trying to get onto the back of Penetra. But yeah, that push to pass is going to be ever crucial. Using it at the right points, maximizing when you use it, and also not being left vulnerable by using it side by side. You've got the number 2 on the inside of the 6. Penetra trying to make his way up around the outside. You can see the yellow car keeping it honest, but again, that wide line, a longer distance around the corner, and Samoa's there just able to etch himself in front for now. But look at Penetra, he's feisty. He wants to get back in front. So they're fighting for the lower positions, but certainly gloves off.
Exactly, and especially in series like this, we have seen good battles up and down the field as drivers just want to be battling, flying their way through the Moraine sweep now as we follow back on Marco Flacker. They're up in P1. He continues to lead by a gap of about a half a second over Ronaldo Carlos, trying to see if he can stretch that gap out a little bit more. Behind them, it is Enrique, Thyssen, and Lionel rounding out your top 5.
Yeah, and we're on board with Nick Thyssen. In fact, he's on the back of Enrique, who really didn't get away well off the start. Did a fantastic job in qualifying to qualify just shy of a 10th and a half behind Flacker, but unfortunately not getting off to the best of starts, going a little bit deep as well. So this is going to open the door for Thyssen maybe to go around the outside of the carousel. This is going to be very difficult, but he's going to pull it off the long way around. Look at that move from Nick Thyssen there. Enrique keeping him honest on the inside, but that is a fantastic move, and that's how you get yourself onto the podium in style.
It is indeed a great move there from Nick Thyssen to be able to hold that out. Now he's going to have about a second and a half up the road to try to close in on Ronaldo Carlos and that number 9 machine up ahead. Already starting to grow a little bit of a gap over Enrique, about 5/10 of a second as they dive down into Canada corner.
Yeah, absolutely, but he's got to get his head down, got to get after him, really. Carlos, he's keeping him honest. Any mistake from Flacker, he's piling the pressure on, staying in the rearview mirror. Yes, he's not close enough particularly to go for a move, but he's certainly there. He's in the mix. He's saying, okay, I'm here, I'm still in the mix. Don't count me out. If you make a mistake, I'm certainly going to pick up on it, and that's going to be playing in the back of Flacker's mind. He's going to have that pressure not to make a mistake, and Carlos and Thyssen, they just have to work together. They just have to not fight and wait for that mistake, but still Penetra and Simo's going and fighting with each other. Of course, is giving us some fantastic action. They're having a lot of fun fighting, but they're losing a lot of time to Medeiros in front, and still the battle in the midfield rages on.
Exactly, Lionel continuing to try to close in on Nick Thyssen there. A little bit sideways for the number 1 coming off of that first corner. I think he may have just clipped the grass a little bit, but what that battle has really done is it's allowed for Pascual and Medeiros to be able to close in on the back of that as well, really leading a train, bringing down the gaps in between all drivers.
It really is, and it's just bunching everyone up, keeping everyone in the mix. You can see Enrique trying to make amends for a poor start. He's on the inside of the number 5, getting his mate back up. Is he going to go for a send on Nick Thyssen? Not quite close enough. You certainly thought he had a little think about it, but as they go through turn 5 and under pressure, is that Carlos and Flacker going side by side into the second section.
Indeed, they are. That's Flacker able to hold out that corner, but that's going to slow them down and bring Nick Thyssen right into the conversation as well as they come around now out of turn 7, diving down into 8. This is a tricky braking zone. You can sometimes see overtakes getting done there. Carlos having to defend heavily from Thyssen, and Thyssen's going to try to go around, get around the outside of the carousel.
Here he goes. Is he going to get this one stuck? Yes, he is. Just look at that throttle control. Just managed to dance the car around the outside, gets himself into second place. Carlos, yes, crucially hasn't used a push to pass yet, as opposed to Thyssen and Flacker, who have, and he has got that advantage, but in fighting, in going for that move, it was unsuccessful, and the gaps close so quickly. We're literally just alluding to how quickly gaps can close, how quickly people can be brought back into the mix, and Nick Thyssen driving a fantastic race now, started 4th, up into 2nd, just capitalising. We've got the number 5 and the number 3, Pascal, trying to get himself inside the top 5 as well. Lionel's going to say, no, you don't, up the inside, bit of argy-bargy. You can see Pascal pushed all the way to the exit of the circuit, and unfortunately he's not Nick Thyssen, and he can't make that one stick on the outside.
No, he can't, but they're going to hold on. Woo, a little bit of a sideways move there for Mario Lionel in P5 as he's able to hold on to that car just barely coming through Bill Mitchell Bend. They now snake their way back onto this climbing main straight, climbing the hill. It looked like Flacker there actually got off into the grass a little bit. That could slow him down a little bit, but Nick Thyssen choosing to close in behind. And yeah, as you said, Flacker and Thyssen both have used their one push to pass thus far. Lionel and Enriquez has as well. Looks like a little bit of a try try to fight back there from Carlos, jumping back down further in the field. That is Pascal and Medeiros going very close through turn 1.
Indeed, indeed. And for me, I don't know why they're fighting so hard and getting their elbows out. Just push forward. You see how tough this fight is in front. Get after it. Try and close up on them because you know they're going to fight. You know you can both get into the mix. So what's the point in fighting? You can see the number 3 probably using a push to pass. Just look at that closing speed. Pascal gets himself back inside the top 5, but in doing so, just loses time to Enrique in front, and Carlos and Thyssen and Flacco. When if they don't fight, they could really be in the mix, get himself into this train. But we've got the top 7 all within a second of each other. It's fantastic.
It is indeed absolutely fantastic stuff. Everybody keeping really, really close, and this is some of the closest racing we've seen out of Friday Night Primetime for this entire season as we've been running it. Nick Thyssen now trying to close down again on that leader. We've seen just how powerful he can be coming down through turn 8 and going through the carousel. Little bit sideways there for Flacker as they come into that carousel under the Johnsonville Bridge. Doesn't look like Thyssen's going to be able to make the attack here, but he is certainly trying to poke and prod and try to find a break in the defense of Marco Flacker.
Absolutely, just putting that pressure on, similar to Carlos a little bit earlier on, but this time he's a lot closer, and he knows, Flacker knows that Thyssen is a bit of a menace, and that pressure piling on. Thyssen just setting himself up, putting himself in the perfect position, just analysing his opponent, waiting for that break in the defensive lines, and then he's going to seize his opportunity. Then he's going to go for the move, but again, you cannot count Carlos out, you cannot count Enrique out. He's got to pick his moments carefully, because if it goes sour, if it goes wrong, he could very easily lose 1, 2, maybe even 3 positions. This is very reminiscent of just a kart race where they're bumper to bumper, all racing so hard.
Yeah, indeed. I think that is the perfect analogy to be had here. Thyssen looking like he's got a pretty good run coming off of that final corner, trying to see what he can do. Marco Flacker has used another push to pass here, so that's going to be him ahead a little bit more of Nicky Thyssen as they come in. Carlos trying to close in behind, keeping those gaps nice and tight as they come across the start-finish line. About 20 minutes left to go here in this race, only a third down.
Yeah, time really does fly, doesn't it? But yeah, Flacker using that push to pass in defense, probably thought that Nick Thyssen's going to use one. He's got to react to it and set himself up as best as possible. But yeah, Nick Thyssen, Carlos especially, both having that advantage now, and Flacker needs to be careful. He hasn't got an abundance left of that push to pass. He's got to use it in scarcity. Just make sure he's saving it and can only use it when he absolutely needs to, because there's nothing worse than leading the race, but into those final 8 minutes, those final few laps, being left vulnerable because you use your push to pass a little bit too early on.
Yeah, exactly. That is really where the strategy of this race comes into play, that you've got to be very, very careful about not using those too early as they go around, working their way here, riding on board with Pascal as he tries to hold himself in there, trying to see what it is. Nick Thyssen now looking very, very aggressive once again as they go down through the carousel, taking a little bit of a narrower line, just letting that speed run out at the apex of the corner.
He really does know how to just dance the car through, and he's practically pushing Flacker through, saying, come on, mate, get on with it. And he's now putting that pressure on, filling the rearview mirror of Flacker, and just saying, come on, this is me and you now. I'm fighting for it. I want that race victory. I've got an extra push to pass versus you. And yeah, Thyssen is just fantastic at that. He's just sat there. He has full trust in Flacker not to make a mistake, which, yeah, could be dodgy, could affect him, but he's just sat there. He's got full trust in his own ability not to tap him, and just stays as close as possible. But Carlos is still there, still in the mix, and will Flacker again use the push to pass, or is Thyssen going to seize this opportunity and say, well, Flacker can't afford to use another push to pass, so I'm going to do it, I'm going to be proactive, and now I'm going to be the one to make the move?
I think that is going to be exactly what it is. A little bit of contact there between Flacker and Thyssen as they come across the start-finish line. They are going to be side by side, railing across and going both on the button here as they charge down into turn 1. Defensive move from Flacker. Thyssen going to jump to the inside there, but not able to make it work. They're going to stay the way they were.
Indeed, Flacker did in fact use that push to pass, so too did Thyssen, and both just so aggressive, trying to retain this race lead. Carlos was just sat idle, waiting for an opportunity. Unfortunately, none arose for him. But yeah, Thyssen, Flacker, both want this dearly. Both are going to be fighting so aggressive for it. They've got another bit of straight here, both putting that throttle pedal through the floor as best they can. Thyssen is brave on the brakes. Flacker going defensive to the inside, trying to cover off that inside line. Does not want to give anything to Thyssen. Straight away pulling it back to the right-hand side, trying to cover off that outside as best as possible. But Thyssen going to say, you can have it. I'm going to try and go underneath you. But both of these guys now, this is where it's going to be happening.
It is indeed, and it looks like the area to use that push to pass is going to be on the start-finish straightaway, but here is where Thyssen has been able to really excel this middle sector of the lap as he continues to work his way behind your leader of Marco Flacker, trying to see what he can get. A little bit of a look there. That's going to be an outside move around turn 8. Is that going to be able to set him up? I'm not sure. It doesn't look like it, but he may try to make the move around the outside of the carousel again.
Oh, it's Nick Thyssen. He loves this move, doesn't he? This time, Flacker's going to make it a little bit harder for him, unable to make that one stick, but just look at how Thyssen sets the car up, puts Flacker under pressure, says, okay, you're going to go defensive, I'm going to go underneath you, and now look at the run that Flacker hasn't got versus Thyssen, and he's just tucked up in the slipstream, waiting for the opportunity, piling the pressure on, and Flacker going to be all over. He's just going to be staring at his mirror, wondering, where's Thyssen? Is he going for the move? Is he going for the move? And he's not focusing on the road ahead of him. This is where we might see some mistakes start to creep in, but this is such a high-intensity moment of the race, not even halfway through, but they're fighting as if it's the last lap, and it truly is fantastic. But Nick Thyssen and Flacker both giving us an absolute show.
Indeed, a fantastic show being put on there. Flacker and Thyssen just continuing to work their way around. Good off of that final corner there from Nick Thyssen. That could be a little bit of a power move. Is he on the button? It doesn't look like it. This is just going to be a battle of straight horsepower. Thyssen is going to have the inside line going down into turn 1. They're going to be side by side in an absolute drag race as they come through the corner, crossing over the start-finish line. This is going to be a battle of the late breakers into that brush-breaking turn 1, and it looks like it's going to be Flacker able to sleep around the outside.
What a defensive move. Just said, I'm going to brake later than you are, and he just sails around the outside, having to go defensive on that run in towards turn 3, but Thyssen going to set him up to the outside. He's going to go for the move underneath him, get that drive off the corner on that run through turn 4, and then that downhill braking into turn 5, already putting the pressure on, going to have to go the long way round, but he's got the straight line speed. He's using his push to pass, and up into the race lead goes Nick Thyssen.
And Thyssen on a little bit of push to pass here, trying to build that gap as much as he can to Marco Flacker as we get closer and closer to the halfway point. And there he is. Wow! Almost out of control. There was Nick Thyssen coming down into turn 5.
I think it was Flacker more so. He just got a little bit too squirmy on the brakes, a little bit too eager to get back up the inside of Thyssen, and that just allowed Carlos to seize the opportunity that he's been waiting for. He's been sat idle, waiting, just spectating this fight between Flacker and Thyssen, and that was the opportunity because Flacker, a little bit too eager, saw that, hey, there's a gap, I might be able to send it, but in doing so, just opened the door for Carlos to slip underneath him, said thank you very much, and now side by side, but Flacker's going to put that pressure on. He's going to try and do the Nick Thyssen and go the long way around of the carousel. Bit of contact as Carlos tries to nip it back up the inside. Enrique and Pascal as well, both putting some pressure on, and meanwhile Nick Thyssen 2 seconds adrift.
Yeah, using that push to pass in a very defensive way to be able to pull himself ahead. An absolutely brilliant move as there is a whole gaggle of cars now forming behind them. Oh, that is the number 9 of Carlos having a big off coming through the kink. He's able to gather it up back under him, but keep on going. But he's going to find himself under attack here from Pasquale and Lionel if he's not careful.
Absolutely, he's going to lose these places. It's all about rhythm, it's all about momentum. As soon as you're overtaken, you're out of that rhythm, and then people behind are going to sniff blood. They're going to then want to get back up the inside, and that tiny error from Carlos has cost him P2 down to P5 in just 1 lap. And this, yes, is a tribute to how close this midfield is and how fantastic it has been. But this is Flacker going around the outside of Carlos. You saw they made a touch bit of contact. I'm not entirely sure if that was just netcode or not, but again, that tap just allowed Lionel and Pascal to get into the mix, and here we go, still fighting as Carlos tries to make amends for it.
Yeah, trying to make amends for it to the best of his abilities as we watch here on the number 9 in the middle of everything. Pedro Enrique trying to be a little bit careful as they go down now into turn 5 here. The question is going to be is who gets on push to pass.
Absolutely, Carlos is the man with the advantage with that. He hadn't used one up until last lap, but now still on 5, which is the most of those still in contention in this race. And Thyssen and Flacker both sort of equal on pace. Flacker managed to take out a couple of tenths, but yeah, Carlos just has to play it. He's going on full. Well, Enrique's going for the move down the inside of Carlos, but I think Carlos is just being patient. He knows he's got the advantage, but again, how late can he leave it? How late can he afford to leave it? Because yes, he's saying, okay, oh, and that's a spin. That's Flacker.
That is indeed. He lost it coming up through turn 6. Oh, comes back onto the track and collects Carlos.
He does indeed. This has just gone from bad to worse. Salt in the wound for Carlos. Was that an unsafe rejoin from Flacker, or was it just wrong place, wrong time for Carlos? But either way, Nick, this is going to be licking his lips and saying, thank you very much, boys. But yeah, that is so unfortunate. We've lost 2 key contenders in this race, which has robbed us really of a spectacle. Just a touch on the grass. It really was the most minuscule of mistakes, and rolling forward onto the track, a slight bit of contact with Carlos, and that both was then sent round. But it really was just the tiniest of mistakes that had the most drastic of consequences.
Yeah, it really and truly was. And there you can see, I've got to say for Flacker, I definitely think that was a little bit of an unsafe rejoin, unfortunately for him. And so that's going to put him back down in the field. But we've still got a good battle shaping up here. This is Medeiros and Penetra as they squabble for P5 overall.
Indeed, you can see Penetra looking to the inside, not quite going to be able to make that one stick, but Medeiros, who certainly has been in contention before, we saw a couple of times how quick they can be, but Penetra putting some pressure on, going to go to the inside. It might quickly become the long way round, though. Indeed, it has going to be, but Medeiros going to keep him on. There's been a contact again. They're both being sent round as Medeiros been sent round into the barrier. A huge crash between the two, and that is how easy it is sometimes here at Road America.
Indeed, such a tricky circuit. We always talk about how wonderful it is to drive, but it is also one that will catch you out if you are not careful. But the driver who has been careful and has been able to pull his way up into the lead wonderfully here, Nick Thyssen, who holds a 3.5-second gap as we tick closer and closer with 11 minutes to go in this race. He looks nearly unassailable from Pasquale and Henrique behind him.
Absolutely. We're going to take another look at what happened between Medeiros and Penetra. Just, again, a little bit over the grass from Medeiros, come back onto the circuit, bit of a squeeze from the 6, and then both of them just a passenger on iRacing. You get onto that grass, you really have just got nothing you can do, and unfortunately was just tagged round, and yeah, those things sort of happen, but that's them out of contention for a top 5. But yeah, Nick Thyssen has just played this race so beautifully. He's been playing chess, everyone else has been playing checkers, because the way he's managed to just dance that car around the outside of the carousel, set up moves, play a defensive buy this time, use that push to pass wisely, and now he sees his opportunity in 3.5 seconds in front. You can't say he can take his foot off the gas, because he certainly can't. He can't get complacent, but he's got certainly a bit of breathing room just to relax a little bit, take a breather, and try and enjoy this race lead.
Yeah, indeed. He's definitely got to be a little bit careful, and he is going to have to watch out for those drivers behind. Pasquale certainly is going to be one to maybe try to use the push to pass here a little bit. Maybe that will be a way that he can try to get by to close back in. We've seen what that can do.
Yeah, that's Flacker off. I think we just saw, indeed, once again, Flacker going off really has just been tarnished by that mistake a little bit earlier on, maybe a bit of damage to his front end, because, yeah, that car certainly has seen better days in more ways than one. And, yeah, just I think it was a bit of a lock-up again going into this corner, just trying to turn it in under brakes. The car says nope, and straight into the gravel, which has cost him yet another position to, I think, Penetra. But, yeah, it again, it's so easy to do. This circuit really is challenging, and you've got to settle into that rhythm, isn't it? As soon as you've knocked out of it, it's so difficult to get back into it, especially after a frustrating mistake from second and third on the road, which are fantastic positions, and the frustration kicks in, and that's when more mistakes start to creep in.
Exactly, and it's all about trying to limit those mistakes around here when you get into these closing stages of the race. Once you start to get yourself a gap, that is where your brain starts to, well, not necessarily shut down, but calm itself down a little bit. You start to think that you are good to go and that you don't really have a whole lot to be able to worry about, and that is when you actually need to be on your absolute best. You cannot let any momentary gap of complacency slip into your brain around a track like Road America. As we said, it may be deceptively simplistic if you're sort of looking at it from the top-down perspective, but when you're actually driving this thing, it is so difficult.
Absolutely, there's little to no margin for error at all around this circuit, so you cannot let your brain shut down. You've got to keep it active. You've got to keep telling yourself that you've got to stay in this race, that it's so easy around some circuits to just go into autopilot and do your own thing, which, yeah, fantastic, but as soon as you start to shut down and then you start to sort of just get into that false sense of security, Nick Thyssen easily could say, okay, 3.5 seconds, I've got 8 minutes left of this race. easy peasy, I can just, you know, chill. And, you know, I've won this race. I've done the hard work. No one else is catching up to me. Pascal, he's been in like 5th and 6th for the majority of this race. He's not catching up to me. But as soon as you lead yourself into that false sense of security, as soon as you tell yourself that you're going to win, it's then sort of that, you know, it's then when the confidence then quickly turns into arrogance. Not saying that's going to be the case for Nick Thyssen, but it certainly can be the case and has been the case because, you know, as much as we love motorsport, it certainly doesn't love us back equally on numerous occasions.
Yeah, indeed. Motorsport is a very, very fickle mistress. And speaking of that, it looks like Pasquale has used a little bit of that push to pass. He is closing down. That gap was 3.5 seconds. It's now down to 2.5 seconds between himself and Nick Thyssen. So he's got to be on his toes here. This battle certainly not anywhere near done. A little bit of an almost wide run there for Pasquale as he came through Canada corner, but he is certainly still trying to push here. I've got to think that he is going to try to use those pushes to pass here in the next couple of laps to try to gain back in. Only about 7 minutes remaining in this race.
Absolutely, the time is ticking, but again, he can't use those push to passes to catch because then what's going to happen once he catches up? He's going to be a sitting duck. He can't really do much. He's just going to stalemate because Nick Thyssen's going to say, okay, he's catching, he's got up to me, I'm just going to set it off now. I'm going to use my push to passes. I've got them saved up. So he's got to do some of it on raw pace. He's got to try and creep in, get himself into that slipstream, that toe range, and then start to use the push to passes as a way to attack. And it is going to be difficult, but you know, he's proven, because Nick Thyssen, he's been no mean slouch in this race at all in terms of pace. He's really been on it. So the fact Pascal is matching him is very, very good, and it's very easy, you know, flag. We saw how he took off at the start. He's now in P8, so mistakes can happen to anyone at any time. So yeah, certainly do not count Pascal out, and this race is certainly far from done.
And I'm a little bit surprised there as we ride on board with Felipe there, coming down into turn 5. He didn't use the push to pass there, going down the long moraine sweep. That's a little bit surprising to me. I would have thought he really would have wanted to be on it here as much as possible.
Again, if he is confident he's going to catch, he doesn't want to give Nick Thyssen any thought of an advantage, whether that be psychological for him to say, okay, I've got one more push to pass on you, I can, you go for a move, that's fine, I'm going to get you straight back, or whether that's actually physically having that advantage, more so the physical advantage of just being able to outpower him down a straight, especially in these final moments where you need the push to pass in order to defend or attack. So that's what Pascal will be thinking. Again, as I said, using his raw pace as much as possible in order to close the gap, hoping for a miracle that Nick Thyssen makes a bit of a mistake. But again, if we get into those final laps and Pascal can use those push to pass wisely, use one or two to close the gap and then use the final one in order to actually get past, because if you get onto the final lap, there's only a couple of places where Nick Thyssen can actually use those 3 push to passes. He might not even be able to have that opportunity to use them to defend.
Indeed, and with about a 2-minute, as we've had a little bit of an off there on the back, I believe that was Batista that had a little bit of a spin. That's going to be going down into turn 3. But as we close down here, 5 minutes to go, I anticipate this being probably 2, maybe 3 laps to go at the line.
Yeah, so Thyssen's going to be counting down these laps and just hoping that he gets the checkered flag. Both of them using a push to pass on that final, on that last lap there. Both now down to just 2 push to passes apiece. Enrico as well on 2. In fact, all of the top 4 are on 2 push to passes left. But Thyssen and Pascal, most crucially, both using the push to pass. We've seen before in this season how it's a very reactionary thing. If one uses it, the other person then has to use it as a way to not give the other person an advantage. We saw it with the fight between Thyssen and Flacker. One uses it, the other uses it to defend. So maybe that's what Thyssen's thinking, is that, okay, Pascal's using it, I've then got to use it to make sure he doesn't close this gap.
Indeed, and another little added niggle here into everything, and that is going to be some lap traffic. That is Victor Batista that Nick Thyssen is going to have to deal with now. Going down into turn 5. Ooh, that got a little bit hairy there. Batista locking up. Thyssen able to get by nice and easy, but that could have been a very scary moment.
Traffic is a big talking point in endurance races. Not quite one we talk about too much in 30-minute sprint races, but in this case, Thyssen was just going to be hoping, okay, please just move, make it easy for me. And seeing in his mirrors that he locked up and then he went into the side of him was certainly going to be putting Thyssen's heart in his mouth there. But yeah, that certainly could have spiced things up. Luckily, Thyssen managed to clear him pretty quickly. But for Pascal and his chances of winning this race, he's probably got him in the worst places through the carousel and then into a tight and twisty final section. He might lose a bit of time here, which would squander his ability to get into the mix to win this race, especially as we've only got, as you say, a couple of laps left to go. And yeah, there we go. Batista moving out the way. Of course, he's doing that in good intention, trying to move off the racing line, but doing it so suddenly and so jaggedly. As a lapped car, it's your responsibility to be predictable, and doing like that, it very easily could have ended in tears.
Yeah, indeed, it really, really could have, but able to do it. We've got another little battle here starting to shape up. This is Murilo Lionel and Ronaldo Carlos, a battle for P4 right now. Carlos looking like he's starting to close in a little bit more as the gap for the leaders starts to expand. This one definitely heating up in the final couple of minutes to go, and indeed, I'm watching Nick Thyssen crossing over the start-finish line now with about 2.5 minutes to go. That means it is 2 to go.
Indeed, our pole time was a 2:15.3, so if they're matching within a couple of seconds of that in this race, Nick Thyssen absolutely flying with that fastest lap as well, so should just about get 2 laps in this race. In fact, Carlos now on the back of Lionel. We saw him have a bit of a skirmish with Flacker, trying to get himself in the mix, fell backwards, but he's certainly recomposed himself well. He's brushed it off and he's pushed forward as best he can, and now he's putting some pressure on Lionel to get himself into the top 4, because yeah, Carlos, as I said a little bit earlier on, an absolute sensational run of form. Another driver trying to recompose himself is Flacker and get himself into 7th place. Looking to the inside of turn 1, it's just a brush break, and as you said, but still looking eager to go up the inside and put that pressure on Penetra.
Still trying to put that pressure on Penetra, seeing what he can do. We know the speed out of the number 7, and here he goes. It looks like both drivers out of push to pass. I'm not sure there that Carlos is going to be able to get that move done going down into 4, but still a little bit of time left here to go. As we said, 2 to go at the line, and they'll have that little bit of traffic to deal with in the form of Batista.
Indeed, and you can see Flacker there looking for the dummy, the number 6. Penetra says, no, you don't. So Flacker's going to try and go the long way round of turn 5. Is he going to get it done? Nope, just going to have to tuck in behind. And Penetra really going to be defending this one as best he can. Both of them without push to pass, and they can't exactly get after Samoes, who's about 1.5 seconds up the road, because neither of them have the capability to do that. Yes, they've got the pace, but that push to pass is really going to be a ball and chain, dragging them backwards. But Flacker's putting them some pressure on. Yes, it's only for P7. Looking to the inside, he's going to take any position he can get. Simple up the brakes. Thank you very much. Gets the move done. This time manages to do that corner without locking up.
And that is far easier said than done to be able to get that in there. Ooh, a little bit of squirreliness there. That was Batista getting off onto the grass and off onto the grass. And again, this is Lionel and Carlos that are just able to get by him. Remember, this is that battle for P4 right now. Your leader, though, Nick Thyssen, coming out of the final corner to take the white flag. They've only got 1 more lap around this Road America circuit between the number 5 and the number 9 to sort this battle out.
Starting P5 for Nick Thyssen. Now he's leading the way and has played this race absolutely beautifully. He's going to be counting down the corners, 14 of them left to go, and he's done a sensational job. But we look back, Pascal setting the fastest lap, but this is the fight for P4. Lionel going defensive, Carlos using what little push to pass he's got left to go the long way round and just absolutely sail past on the pit straight. And that's what he was waiting for, I reckon, just to say, I'm going to wait until you can't get me back, because I've got the pace to take off into the corners, and on that final run down that pit straight, I can use my push to pass, sail past, but we don't have an extra run down the pit straight because it's the final lap. So yeah, very well played for Carlos, and now he's just got to keep it composed and bring it home for 4th place.
And I have a feeling he'll be able to do that. We've seen some great pace out of Ronaldo all day long. He has just got to try to keep out of the draft here. I think if he's able to get it around, he'll do nice and well. Nick Thyssen, though, your leader, climbing up the hill under the Corvette Bridge, going down through that tricky turn 6, able to manage it, and he's got to go through the hurry downs now for one final time.
Yeah, he's just trying to get to the end and not make that mistake, because, as I said earlier, motorsport can bite back at any point. It can happen to anyone. It really is just indiscriminate. It doesn't matter who you are, how well you've done, it will bite back. Through the carousel, where we've seen some fantastic moves done from Nick Thyssen, who has just driven fantastically in this race. So too from Pascal and Enrique as well, because they both didn't get off to the best of starts, but just was patient, consistent, and they reaped the rewards for it. Yes, Flacker and Carlos were arguably a lot quicker than them, but they fell to the demise of a few mistakes and a bit too rash judgment. So Pascal reaped the rewards of it, and he still has a good pace, taking the fast lap today. So our top 3, very deservedly so, taking it.
Indeed, very deservedly so, and none more deserved than this man, Nick Thyssen, who rounds out of Canada corner for the final time. Up and around Bill Mitchell Bend. He's only got one corner to go. A little bit of a battle in the back. That's Carlos and Lionel. Looks like Carlos is going to be able to hold that at bay, but Nick Thyssen is going to cross out of that final corner. He will climb the hill at Road America, looking over to the left for Barney the Flagman. He's got the checkered in his hands, and the checkered flag waves for Nick Thyssen. He will be followed home by Felipe Pascal, with Pedro Enrique rounding out your top three. It was very, very close between Carlos and Lionel. I think that one's still being a little bit decided. There it comes across the line, and it will be Carlos able to hold off Lionel there at the line.
Fantastic race today. The last 30 minutes have been thoroughly enjoyable. Nick Thyssen giving us an absolute show. Flacker, Carlos, all of them in the mix at around about the halfway mark, giving us that fantastic fight amongst the top 5 and the top 7. Each of them being within 1 second of each other. DJ, this is what we love about Friday Night Primetime.
Yeah, it is indeed. This is exactly why you and I both love covering this series, Zach. And let's run you through that final finishing order if we can. As we said, Nick Thyssen able to take victory from 5th place on the grid. He was also your highest charger. We still got a couple of cars coming across the line, so we'll have to wait on that. But yeah, that hard charger award there for Thyssen, absolutely incredible. Up 4 on the day.
Yeah, he just didn't do the best of job in qualifying. Still the top 5, still put himself in that good position, but again proved how good Road America is for overtaking. And you know, in the most unlikely of places, you wouldn't count the carousel as being one of those moves where you'd go around the outside because of how long and fast it is, but he just controlled the throttle, just danced the car around and just said, okay, you've got the shorter run, but I'm going to go around the outside. And again, kudos to the guys on the inside, not to just do their, well, it's my corner, you're not on the outside sort of thing, I'm just going to take my normal line. But yeah, great mutual respect between these drivers, and that's what we like to see in racing.
It is indeed, as Eder Penetra crosses over the line there to finish out. I'm not sure if we are still waiting on Brian Penner or not, but that will be 8th and 9th out on the track. But one way or the other, some fantastic racing today. And you got to say, you got to feel very, very gutted for Marco Flacker. He really drove a good race, and just those mistakes, as you mentioned, Zach, really scuppering his chances for the day.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a few creeping in, maybe in a bit of desperation and a bit of frustration as to how good his qualifying pace was. Of course, taking pole position, of course, sort of saw that and didn't want to lose that because, you know, you get pole, you go into the race hoping to go for the victory. So that move down into turn 5, locking up, falling victim to Carlos going underneath him, and then a few lockups, that spin as well, really knocked his confidence, really knocked his morale, and that affected him from then on in. He couldn't settle back into rhythm and couldn't get into that consistent flow that we saw, and that's why he fell victim and had to languish towards the back end of the midfield.
Indeed he did, and now we do have all of the cars finished out on track, it looks like, so we can run you through that final finishing order. Nick Thyssen, Felipe Pascual with Pedro Enrique, Ronaldo Carlos, and Muriel Teixeira Lionel rounding out your top 5. Simoes in 6th, with Flacker in 7th, down on the day, unfortunately. Penetra in 8th, Penner 9th, Batista 10th, and Medeiros rounding out your finishing order on the day. And well, Zach, we were talking about it before the broadcast, just how fantastic action it is. But next week, Knock Hill, that's going to be even more insanity.
Absolutely, it's going to be one to watch for sure. I think it'll be a similar race to sort of Bathurst in terms of chaos and excitement, as opposed to wheel-to-wheel action. But I certainly cannot wait. It's such an undulating circuit. There's all the buying corners, of course, that uphill chicane where it's quite fast-paced, but over the crest the car can go very, very light. But it's going to be a very enjoyable race to watch. There won't be perhaps much in terms of wheel-to-wheel action, as I say, but still will be a good race and a test of drivers' ability, because it's a narrow circuit as well. So similar to today, there's not much margin for error.
Yeah, there really and truly isn't. Plenty of off tracks to pick up around there, and drivers are going to have to be careful for it. But that is going to be one to watch. We will be back for that broadcast next week at 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time, 12:45 Pacific. Once again, my name is DJ Clark, and on behalf of Zach Sweeney and Arjuna Kankapati, we would like to thank you for joining us here today for Friday Night Primetime, featuring the Stock Car Brasil series. This has been a production of RaceSpotTV, and until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.